For him, apparently not. Stay impartial. Hello everyone and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I want to talk about agents dropping actors from their books because of their divisive opinions. Before we start, quick show of the week is Scotsboro Boys. Brilliant show, based on a true story, written by Canada and Ebb. Fantastic. Definitely check it out. I will leave links to the cast recording below. If I can find it. Pretty sure I can find it. It'll be somewhere. I've kind of spoken about this before on my channel last year, but what's inspired this video is Laurence Fox, that man, who has recently, at the time of filming anyway, been dropped by his agent. And I saw this unfolding on Twitter and saw a lot of responses from people who seemingly don't really know how the agent-actor relationship works, saying how unfair it was and that it was political correctness gone mad. And I just wanted to clear that up because that's not what's going on. I'm going to be using Laurence Fox and a situation last year as case studies as to why an agent would decide to let an actor go, to drop them off their books because of opinions that they have aired publicly. Now, even though I'm using these two situations as case studies, firstly, I'm going to try very hard to keep my personal opinion out of it, because wherever you fall on the spectrum of these people's opinions doesn't matter. The issue here is when you air your strong opinions about something, can your agent drop you? And explaining why that happened. Secondly, I'm not personally acquainted with either of these situations. Anything that I'm talking about is either stuff based on reports that have been made public in news outlets, or things I've seen on social media, or my own summations of what may have happened behind the scenes. But I was never involved in any of this. I don't know. So take that as you will. And thirdly, I am going to be talking about some legal stuff, but I'm not a lawyer. I am just an actor on the internet. So anything I mention in terms of legal stances is either stuff that I've found from my own research or my own understanding of the law as I'm familiar with it. Let's get into it, because so much BS. Before we get into these two particular cases, I just want to give an overview of the agent-actor relationship, because I think that's what a lot of people are misunderstanding in this whole thing in terms of lay people. An agent is someone who represents an actor in all of their business dealings. So an agent will submit you for auditions. They're usually the one who gets all the information from the casting director and then forwards it onto you if you have an agent. If you get offered a job, they will be the one who negotiates the contract. Hopefully they can get you a bit more money. We love it when that happens. They process the payment and everything like that. And in return, the agent gets commission off of your earnings when you are in work. Quick side note about this, if an agent ever says there's an upfront fee for joining their books, or if they say if you join their books you have to use their specific photographer for your headshots, which obviously incurs a fee, it is a scam. Run. You should not be paying an agency to put you on their books. They make their money through commission off of what you earn. So essentially this relationship is based on it being mutually beneficial for both parties if the actor is in work. No one's getting paid if the actor isn't working, essentially. So as an actor, you want an agent that is able to find you work. You want an agent that knows the contacts for the kind of work you want to do, knows you as a performer and knows your casting, so they're not putting you in for things that you'd never be seen for, things like that. And similarly, as an agent, you want actors that fill niches on your books. If you need a 6-foot blonde and you don't have one and someone's like, hey, I'm looking for representation, I'm a 6-foot blonde, you're like, yes please, I need you. You also want actors who have a good reputation. You want actors who, when you submit them to the casting directors that you know, saying, you know, this person is great, that casting director's like, yeah, I know, I've heard good things about them, let's get them in. And when these things aren't in balance, it's mutually beneficial for that partnership or that working relationship to end. It can be a bit one-sided. For example, there are some really harsh agents who, when they sign you on, if you don't get a job in 6 months, will just drop you. But by and large, especially with the really good, credible, legitimate agencies, any kind of break in that relationship is going to be mostly mutually beneficial. Actors can go through multiple agents until they find one that's perfect for them. That's not uncommon. That relationship ending is nothing really new or groundbreaking. Obviously, the situations in these specific cases is, but we're just about to get onto that. So now we know about the actor-agent relationship in general, let's get on to these particular cases, shall we? So let's start with Laurence Fox. Laurence Fox was on a TV show called Question Time. He basically dismissed claims that Meghan Markle, who is the wife of Prince Harry, had experienced any kind of racism or racial prejudice from the press, and equated being called a white male who is privileged to racism against actual, non-white people. He received a lot of backlash and criticism for this, but rather than listening to the criticism in any way, he decided to double down on his views. There have been odd splatterings of different things that have happened, but two kind of main ones that I remember because there's been so much. When a close friend of his said that she could not maintain their friendship with his views, he replied with "All Lives Matter." I think this was through all of the Black Lives Matter protests that were happening in the summer in reaction to the murder of George Floyd. He was very not supportive of that movement and was in the All Lives Matter camp. He's also started his own political party called Reclaim, which I believe is kind of basically reclaiming Britain from woke politics. And in the midst of all of this, recently, at the time of filming, I think it was like last week, it was reported that his agent had decided to drop him from their books. So that's the whole Laurence Fox situation. The other situation I want to use as a case study was from last year with an actress called Sei Omuba. Now, Sei Omuba was cast in the musical The Colour Purple in the role of Celie. For those of you who don't know The Colour Purple, Celie is the main character and she has a relationship with another woman. And this is kind of a big thing for the LGBTQIA plus community because Celie is one of the few black female queer icons for the community. There isn't a lot of representation for black queer women or female identifying people, so she has a very dear place in a lot of people's hearts within that community. That's my understanding as a cis straight woman. So when some posts by Sei on Facebook that were very, very homophobic were brought to public light and she doubled down on those homophobic views, people were not very happy. From what I can remember, there was a lot of backlash. A lot of people were talking about it in any case, and her job offer for the show, because the show hadn't started rehearsals yet, was retracted by the production company, by the creative team. And there was a lot of fallout from this situation in general. But one of the events in the aftermath of that all happening was that her agent also decided to drop her from their books. So on the one hand, you've got Laurence Fox expressing his hostility for the Black Lives Matter movement. And on the other hand, you've got Sei Omuba being dropped because of her public homophobic views. I feel like a lot of people, especially people who, again, aren't aware of how things work in this industry, are putting all the blame on the agents for dropping these actors. Like, how can you drop these actors? They're just expressing their opinions. To understand why this decision was eventually made, we need to go back to who's actually hiring these actors, because the agent doesn't hire the actors. The actors aren't paying the agent in terms of like, I'm gonna pay you an amount every month to try and find me work. Like I said at the beginning, the only way the agent is getting work is if the actor's working. So who's going to be employing the actor? That's going to be the production companies, the theatre companies, whichever facet of the entertainment industry you're working in. Those companies, those production companies, have a duty of care to all of the people that they employ, whether they are employed as employees or they're employed as freelance contractors. They have a duty of care to those people. And that is the first reason why I think these two actors would struggle to get work. The people that these words could be said to be hurting, namely the gay community and the non-white community, the BAME community, those communities are defined by protected characteristics. Protected characteristics are characteristics that are protected by the law. as the name suggests. So these are your age, your gender identity, your sexual orientation, your race, your religion, whether you're disabled or not. I may have missed some, but those are kind of the main ones. And if you don't hire someone because of any of those things, or you fire someone for any of those things, or you bully someone for any of those things, that is discrimination. And both of these actors are threatening people because of certain protected characteristics in the eyes of the people who disagree with their views. Hiya, B from the editing room. Obviously, what they are saying is discriminatory in nature. Whether it's discrimination or not, I think the way the two sides would argue it is that the people who are agreeing with them would say it's not technically discrimination because you're not saying it to a specific person or a specific group of people directly, you're just expressing your opinion. Whereas the people who disagree with them would say what you're saying is harmful to this group of people, whether or not you're saying it to an individual or a group of individuals directly. By expressing those views, you are harming the people who identify as this thing. Just wanted to clarify that. As a production company looking to hire some actors for a project, you have a duty of care to everyone that you're hiring. And if the people you're hiring wouldn't be safe or wouldn't feel safe because of the publicly aired views of someone that you're considering hiring, you're just not going to hire them because it'd be too much of a hassle and a headache. You can't hire someone who's like, yeah, I hate the gays, or I hate black people, or I hate Christian people, or whatever it is, because anyone who identifies as that who's working for you will not be safe. And that is your first priority, is duty of care. The second thing these production companies would be considering, which in these cases I don't think this is as much of a concern, but definitely for bigger budget projects or projects with star names who are being very vocal about things, I think it is something that people consider, is the public reaction, public boycotts to the project. As a producer, as a production company, you want to make money, and if no one's going to see your film or your play because this actor who you've hired has these views that to a large majority of the public are unsavory, so much so that they won't come and see the thing, you're going to make less money. That's the way the cookie crumbles. You could also have the situation where there'll be certain high profile people who you are also considering will say that I won't work with this person. If you've got a high profile or very, very talented actor who you want to hire, like you want them in your film or your show or whatever, and they've heard about these really public views and they've heard on the grapevine that they might be being considered, and that person says, love the project, but I will not work with this person, whether it directly affects them or not, and you've got to choose between this person who we definitely know we want on the project and this person who's like kind of all right, but there's someone else who we're also considering, you're just going to go with the other person because it's less of a headache. So as an agent, you're looking at all of this and you're looking at everything that's going down. You're probably still, trying to work with your actor, trying to get them in rooms, and you might be submitting them for things and you might be hearing back from casting directors or production teams, yeah, they don't want to consider them because they've said X, Y, Z. They're too controversial, they're worried about what will happen. And as an agent, you can't do anything with that. If all of your contacts that you have to help your actors are saying no because of what that actor has said publicly, you're not going to be able to get them work. Yes, on the surface, it sounds really brutal, but again, it is kind of mutually beneficial because as an actor, you don't want an agent that can't get you working for you, because you can't be with another agent, you can't be with more than one. And also from an actor's point of view, I'm assuming that these actors think that they're in the right and are on the right side of history. If you truly believe that, are you gonna want to be with an agent who doesn't support you enough to stick by you? Probably not. So yeah, it seems harsh, oh, these agents are dropping these actors because of their beliefs, but also if those actors believe in those beliefs so strongly, surely they wouldn't want to be represented by someone who doesn't share those beliefs and those values. It's just my 2 cents on it. Not saying they're right, they're wrong, but So that's all very well and good, but there's also like, is it fair? Is it legal? I feel like someone should make a podcast or something being like, is it legal? I'm pretty sure that is a thing that exists. Now, you might be sitting here watching this being like, well, it's all very well for her saying, well, you should be happy if your agent drops you if they don't agree with your views and won't support you in what you want to do. But like, how is that okay? How is that allowed to happen? And you might also think, oh, it's because they have certain types of views that their career has been harmed by this stuff. If they were like lefties, it'd be fine. The industry is not all left-leaning. A lot of the prominent players are definitely not left-leaning. Like if you look at the peerages and how they vote, definitely not. There are high-profile figures, at least in the theatre industry, that have been retweeting Trump throughout his time in office / he's still in office. American politics is complicated. So yeah, not everyone in the entertainment industry is left-leaning. There are some very right-leaning people. Whatever your opinions are, if you are going to voice your opinions publicly, you need to be prepared for the repercussions. And that's not just an actor thing, that is an everyone thing. If you're going to tweet what you think, or post what you think, or make videos about what you think, there is a chance that someone is gonna look at that stuff and be like, oh, don't really wanna work with them. Oh, that's a bit divisive. It's not really good for our image if we hire them. And the example I'm gonna use as a counter example to our case studies is John Boyega. John Boyega recently did an interview with The Guardian where he said that he was worried that his Black Lives Matter speech in June, which he gave at the protest, would harm his career. I think it's safe to say that John Boyega's stance on Black Lives Matter is very different from Laurence Fox's views on Black Lives Matter, yet both of them run the risk of harming their careers. I mean, Laurence Fox he's already going down that path. With John Boyega, I don't think anyone is going to openly be like, we've dropped him or we're not hiring him because of his views, because public opinion generally is on John Boyega's side, so I don't think anyone would openly say we would never hire him. But there's no way of knowing that John Boyega has not already lost opportunities because of what he said. Because of the nature of how casting works, no one is privy to those behind the scenes discussions. No one is obliged to bring him in for an audition. Like, it's very possible that even if his agent is pushing for him and the casting directors are like, yeah, he's great, let's try and get him in, the producers behind the scenes might be being like, well, I know you want us to bring him in, but he's divisive, so we're not going to audition him. We don't know that. That's just speculation. I do not know if that has happened. There is no way of us to know if that has happened. But John Boyega obviously thinks that there's a possibility that he will lose opportunities for voicing that strong opinion. And that is a very left, anti-racist opinion. The second thing that people might say is, well, what about freedom of speech? Firstly, we don't have freedom of speech in the UK, we have freedom of expression. And freedom of expression is Article 10 of the Human Rights Act of 1998, which at the moment we're still in the Human Rights Act. Love that for us in the UK. Love those human rights. And what freedom of speech says in a nutshell is that you can say anything you want, quote, without the interference of a public authority, which basically means the government. A government body or a government authority cannot be like, dude, you need to stop saying this. There are some caveats with that. So if anything you say breaks the law, the government can be like, nah, stop saying that, that's illegal. If you're inciting violence, for example, it'd be like, no, let's not do that. Saying I don't support Black Lives Matter or saying we should have no border controls, the government can't stop you from saying those kinds of things. However, acting agencies and production companies are not the government. Acting agencies and production companies are private companies. The same as in the US, freedom of speech means the government can't shut you up. That doesn't mean that private companies can't be like, we're not giving you a platform, we're not going to hire you because you've said these things. And that wouldn't be discrimination because, again, it's not because of protected characteristics. No one is saying we're not going to hire Laurence Fox because he's white. Hypothetically, they're not hiring him because of the views he's expressed and the implication of those views on the production process and the working environment. Private companies can do what they want. If Laurence Fox could prove that they're not hiring because he's a white man, then fair enough, but that could quickly be debunked by being like, but we hired these white men instead of you. So, what's your problem? Legally, an agency is within their rights to drop you if they can't get you a job. Production companies are within their rights to not hire you if hiring you would cause problems, if it would endanger other people who are also being hired, or there's someone else that they can hire who would be less of a headache because they won't be going around talking about their new political party. That's how we're gonna be. So the moral of this story, guys, gals, and non-binary pals, is the same moral that I tried to impart in my video last year when the Say Omuba thing was first happening, and I was trying to be very political and not say anything divisive. You know, you can say what you want, you can do what you want, but if you're gonna make it public, be prepared that there might be some negative consequences to that. Everything that you put out publicly, you've got to be prepared. If you decide to double down or you decide to retract it, that's a decision you have to make, and you have to live with your own decisions. If you truly think you're in the right, as like I said, I'm sure Say and Laurence believe they're in the right, but then you've got to deal with the consequences of that. And yeah, that can be hard if you think you're on the right side of history. That's up to you to reckon with and find a way around it. Or maybe, you know, take a step back and be like, if so many people aren't agreeing with me because I'm hurting a group of people who've done nothing to me, then maybe I should think about that. I don't know. And the other thing is, which I think is what people don't think about, is that you don't have to be vocal about everything. Like, yes, being a vocal activist or a vocal ally to activist causes that you care about is an important thing, especially when it's accompanied by action. In fact, only when it's accompanied by action. Obviously, it's up to you how far you would put your career over your principles. That is a decision you have to make. But if you're like, you know what, I do believe this, but I know that if I voice it really, really hard, I'm not gonna get any work, so I'm just gonna keep it to myself. If you want to do that, you know what, you can. There are so many other ways you can support the causes and the values you believe in without going all over social media and posting it if you want to. Not being vocal about what you care about doesn't mean you don't care about it any less, necessarily. And also, it kind of forces you to do the actual work. Essentially, although it's not been reported that way, these agents dropping these actors is basically them conceding that they cannot, you know, fulfill their obligations to those actors. They can't get them work. The fact that they can't get them work through the actors' own actions is something that the actors have to deal and reckon with. And again, that's the same whether you're on the right side of history or the wrong side of history. So that is my 2 cents on these two situations. If you enjoyed this video, please consider liking and subscribing. Would love to have you on the channel. Come on down. We talk about things. Stay tuned for more theatre content from a UK perspective, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye, friends!